I've lived in this town my whole life. You'd think after decades of seeing people come and go, of watching businesses open, thrive, and sometimes close, I would have grown a thicker skin. But nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared me for the storm that nearly destroyed everything I'd built. My little business wasn't glamorous. It wasn't the kind of place you'd see featured in glossy magazines or hip social media feeds. It was a corner store. Just a modest, family-run spot that sold groceries, snacks, and a few household necessities. We stocked things people actually needed: milk, bread, cleaning supplies, fresh fruit, and sometimes even pies baked by my mother-in-law. We weren't trying to be flashy. We just wanted to serve our community. For years it worked. We had regulars who stopped by every morning for coffee, parents picking up last-minute school supplies, elderly neighbors who needed a place close enough to walk to. The kind of shop where people knew your name and asked about your family. So when I woke up one Tuesday morning to find our online page flooded with one-star reviews, I thought it had to be a mistake. At first, it was just a trickle. A few nasty comments here and there. Accusations that didn't make sense. This place discriminates. The owner is hateful. Don't support bigotry. I rubbed my eyes, scrolling through them, confusion giving way to dread. The words were sharp, cruel, written with venom. By the time I made it to the shop that morning, the trickle had turned into a flood. Dozens of reviews, all echoing the same accusations. When I walked through the door, my cashier Kelly looked pale. She had her phone in her hand, her eyes wide. "Have you seen this?" she asked, shoving the screen toward me. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Posts were spreading like wildfire. My store's name tagged again and again, each time attached to words like racist, hateful, bigoted. My stomach dropped. The first few customers of the day came in quiet, avoiding eye contact. Some grabbed what they needed and rushed out. Others paused, scanning the shelves as though trying to see if the rumors plastered online were written somewhere on our walls. By noon, traffic slowed to a trickle. By evening, it was dead. I stood behind the counter, staring at the empty aisles, my mind racing. What the hell just happened? We hadn't done anything wrong. Nothing even remotely controversial. We were a corner store, for crying out loud. And yet, here we were, being painted as the villains in some twisted narrative I didn't understand. That night I barely slept. My wife tried to reassure me, saying it would blow over. But deep down, I knew this wasn't going to disappear on its own. The next morning it got worse. A news article appeared online. Not from a major outlet, but from one of those so-called community blogs that thrive on outrage. The headline screamed, "Local business accused of discrimination." The article cited anonymous sources, vague claims, and screenshots from social media, most of which I could tell were fake, but that didn't matter. It painted me as some sort of monster, a hateful small-town shopkeeper trying to keep certain people out of my store. By lunchtime we had protesters outside. They weren't huge in number at first, maybe 5 or 6. Holding signs. Shouting. Taking selfies with my storefront in the background. I stood in the back, peeking through the blinds, my hands shaking. Kelly looked at me, her voice trembling. "What are we going to do?" I didn't have an answer. What had started as a normal Tuesday morning had spiraled into a nightmare. Our reputation, everything I'd worked for, was collapsing in real time. And I had no idea why or who was behind it. All I knew was this: if I didn't figure it out fast, my business wouldn't survive the week. The first instinct was panic. Close the doors. Shut everything down until it blew over. But the problem was, it wasn't blowing over. Every hour the online storm grew louder. More posts, more accusations. Fake stories spreading like wildfire, none of them rooted in truth. By day 3, even suppliers were calling. Some were hesitant to deliver. A few outright canceled orders. The weight of it pressed down on my chest, suffocating. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with my wife, Sarah, scrolling through the chaos. Every hateful comment felt like a punch to the gut. Every lie felt personal. "I don't know if I can fight this," I admitted. Sarah reached across the table, grabbing my hand. "Then we'll fight it together. You've always told this town the truth. Tell them now. Don't hide." Her words sank in. Hiding wasn't going to save us. If I wanted to survive, I had to speak up. The next morning, I drafted a public statement. I kept it simple. We are a family-run business that has served this community for decades. The accusations against us are false. We welcome every customer with respect. To those who know us, you already know this is true. To those who don't, we invite you to come see for yourself. I posted it on our social media pages, printed copies, and taped them to the store windows. The backlash was immediate. Some mocked it. Others called it damage control. But then something unexpected happened. Longtime customers began commenting. Defending us. Been shopping here for 15 years. Never once felt unwelcome. The owner has donated to local charities every Christmas. This smear is disgusting. Don't believe these lies. This store has been the backbone of our community. And just like that, the tide began to shift. The next day, a local pastor showed up with half his congregation. They came in, bought groceries, shook my hand, and prayed with me right there in the aisle. Later, a group of high school students organized a buy local campaign. They filmed themselves shopping at my store, posting videos with captions like, "Support small businesses. Don't let lies win." Word spread. People who hadn't stepped foot in my shop for years came by, some out of solidarity, others just curious to see the place at the center of so much drama. For every fake review, real ones started pouring in. Honest stories from customers who'd known us for decades. The ratings slowly began to rise again. It wasn't easy. The hate didn't vanish overnight. Protesters still showed up from time to time, waving signs and shouting slogans. But now they were met by counter-protesters, neighbors holding signs of their own, "We stand with local businesses." For the first time since the nightmare began, I felt a flicker of hope. We weren't fighting alone. The community was rallying. And together we were pushing back. As the dust settled slightly, I began asking myself the question that had haunted me since day one. Why us? Who was behind this? Smear campaigns don't appear out of thin air. Someone had to start it. Someone had to feed the fire. I started digging. Late at night, I pored over the reviews and posts looking for patterns. Some of the accounts were brand new. Others had profile pictures stolen from random places on the internet. A few slipped up, commenting in the same phrasing across multiple platforms, copy-pasting identical accusations. I reached out to a friend who worked in IT. He helped me trace some of the IP addresses linked to the fake reviews. Many were out of state, but a few were local. My heart pounded as I read the report. It wasn't some faceless army of activists. It wasn't strangers who'd never set foot in our town. It was people we knew. The names behind the curtain were shocking. A rival business owner. A disgruntled former employee. And, most surprising of all, a member of the town council. The motive? Greed. The rival had always resented our loyal customer base. The ex-employee had left under bad terms, bitter and angry. And the council member? He was pushing for new development in the area, development that would have been easier if our shop, sitting on prime real estate, went under. The realization left me shaken. It wasn't ideology. It wasn't some grand social justice cause. It was pettiness, spite, and personal gain masquerading as outrage. Now came the hard part: what to do with the information. If I exposed them publicly, the backlash could be brutal. They would deny it. They'd call it slander. It could turn the community against me all over again. But if I stayed silent, they'd keep trying until they finally succeeded. I gathered with Sarah, Kelly, and a few trusted friends one night. We sat around the back office, the evidence spread across the desk. "Expose them," Kelly said, fire in her voice. "People need to know the truth." Sarah was quieter. "But if we do, we need to be ready. They won't go down without a fight." We debated for hours. In the end, we agreed. The truth mattered more than the risk. The next morning, I called a press conference. Small, just local reporters, a handful of supporters standing behind me. I laid out the facts, the fake accounts, the traced IP addresses, the connections to my rivals. I didn't yell. I didn't point fingers in rage. I just spoke plainly. This wasn't about justice. It wasn't about community. It was about greed. And it almost destroyed my family's livelihood. The room went silent. Reporters scribbled notes furiously. Cameras flashed. And just like that, the narrative shifted. The backlash against my accusers was swift. The rival business owner lost customers overnight. The former employee was flooded with criticism. And the council member? He faced calls to resign. Suddenly, I wasn't the villain anymore. I was the underdog. The business owner who'd been unfairly targeted, who had stood tall against lies. The community doubled down in their support. Lines formed at my store, people buying more than they needed just to show solidarity. Some drove from neighboring towns, saying they'd heard the story and wanted to help. Local news picked it up. Then regional. Then unbelievably national. Headlines flipped. Small business fights back against cancel culture smear. Sales skyrocketed. Our shelves emptied faster than we could stock them. Suppliers who'd hesitated before now begged to partner with us. What had begun as a nightmare was turning into the best business we'd ever seen. But more than the money, it was the feeling that stuck with me. The sight of neighbors standing shoulder to shoulder outside the store, holding signs of support. The sound of laughter inside the aisles again. The knowledge that the lies hadn't won. The tide had turned. And for the first time in weeks I could breathe. Victory didn't erase the scars. I still jump when I hear my phone buzz at night. I still feel a pit in my stomach whenever I see a new review notification. The memory of those first few days, the fear, the confusion, the crushing weight of betrayal, will never leave me. But something else remains too. Gratitude. Gratitude for the neighbors who spoke up when it mattered. For the customers who refused to believe lies. For the students who launched campaigns, the pastor who prayed in my aisle, the reporters who dug for truth. This ordeal taught me lessons I'll never forget. About crisis management, yes. About online reputation, absolutely. But more than that, about community. About how, when people stand together, even the loudest lies can be silenced. Today, my business is stronger than ever. Not just in profit but in purpose. We've expanded our shelves, added local products, and created a community fund to support other small businesses in crisis. Because I know what it feels like to stand on the brink of losing everything. And I know how powerful it is when people refuse to let you fall. So when I look back at those dark weeks, I don't just see pain. I see resilience. I see solidarity. I see proof that cancel culture, no matter how loud, cannot erase truth when a community fights back. And that, more than anything, is why we survived. Because they didn't just try to cancel my business. They tried to cancel my soul. But together we refused to be silenced.